You ever wake up one day and realize you don't react the way you used to? Like something in you leveled up overnight? Most people think maturity is about being serious or boring. Nope. It's about becoming sharper, calmer, harder to shake, and a whole lot more self-aware. Today we're breaking down 10 sneaky signs you've reached a brand new level of maturity. And if you relate to at least 5 of these, trust me, you're way more evolved than you think. Let's get into it. The first sign is that you've stopped chasing arguments like you used to. Remember when someone said something wrong and you had to correct them? Like it physically bothered you to let someone be mistaken? Yeah, that phase is gone. Now you hear someone say something ridiculous, and instead of jumping in, you just think, you know what? Believe whatever makes you happy. Not because you're avoiding conflict, but because you finally understand that most arguments aren't about truth. They're about ego, and you're not willing to donate your energy to someone's ego anymore. You don't need to win. You don't need the last word. You pick peace over pointless debates, because you've learned that not every comment deserves your response, and not every person deserves your explanation. And that shift alone? That's maturity in its purest form. And speaking of peace, sign number 2 is something you probably never expected to actually enjoy. The second sign is that you genuinely enjoy being alone now, and not in a sad, nobody texted me back kind of way. You choose it. You crave it. You protect it. There was a time when silence felt uncomfortable. You needed people around, noise in the background, constant stimulation. But now, your alone time feels like a recharge station you don't skip. You start realizing that being alone isn't lonely. It's peaceful. It's the only place where your thoughts aren't competing with everybody else's drama, opinions, or chaos. It's where you get clarity, where you get honest with yourself, and where you finally breathe. And the wild part? You stop feeling guilty for wanting that space. You stop apologizing for not always being available. You stop forcing yourself into social situations that drain you. Your own presence starts feeling enough. More than enough. But wait until you hear number 3, because this one catches people off guard, especially when they realize they've started doing it without even noticing. The third sign is that you've started apologizing even when it's uncomfortable. And that's a huge maturity shift most people never reach. Not the quick, automatic sorry you use just to end an awkward moment. I'm talking about the real apology. The kind where you pause, replay what happened, and realize, yeah, that one was on me. You stop seeing apologies as a hit to your ego and start seeing them as a reflection of your character. You're no longer obsessed with being the one who's right. You're more invested in being someone who's honest. With yourself and with the people you care about. And here's the real sign of growth. You don't wait for someone to call you out. You call yourself out. You recognize when your tone was off. You notice when you overreacted. You admit when you misunderstood. And you take ownership before the problem gets bigger. That level of accountability isn't weakness. It's emotional confidence. And that leads straight into sign number 4. Which is basically the emotional version of hitting the gym. Because once you master this next thing, life gets a whole lot smoother. The fourth sign is that the little things just don't set you off like they used to. It's not that life suddenly got easier. You just got stronger. Remember when a short reply could ruin your whole mood? When someone cutting you off in traffic felt like a personal attack? When a minor inconvenience could derail your whole day? Now, you shrug, you breathe, you move on. It's not that you don't care. It's that you've learned to conserve your emotional energy. You've built these invisible emotional calluses that protect you from reacting to every tiny annoyance. You start asking yourself, is this worth my peace? And almost every time the answer is no. Someone takes too long to text back. You've got a life. Someone talks to you with an attitude. That's their issue, not yours. Plans change last minute. You adapt without spiraling. You realize that reacting to every little thing used to drain you more than the thing itself. This is when you really start feeling the shift, because once the small stuff stops controlling you, you reclaim a massive amount of mental, emotional, and even physical space. And number 5? That's the moment you realize you're not just changing your reactions. You're outgrowing entire connections. The 5th sign is that you start outgrowing people. And for the first time, you don't feel guilty about it. There was a time when losing people felt like failure. You'd bend over backwards to keep friendships alive. You'd chase responses, force conversations, keep showing up even when the energy wasn't mutual. But then, something shifts. You stop fighting for connections that drain you more than they feed you. You realize that some people only fit the old version of you, the one who tolerated chaos, ignored red flags, or accepted the bare minimum. And now that you're growing, you can't shrink yourself to stay where they are. So you let distance happen naturally. You stop chasing. You stop explaining. You stop holding on to relationships out of habit. And here's the part that surprises people. You start feeling lighter, not lonelier. You realize that losing people isn't always a loss. Sometimes it's alignment. Sometimes it's you making room for better, healthier, calmer connections. And if this one hits, then number 6 is going to make even more sense. Because this next sign isn't just about people, it's about how you handle yourself in the moment. The 6th sign is that you've developed this quiet superpower. You actually think before you react. It sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest things to master. Because reacting instantly used to be your default. Someone said something you didn't like? You snapped. You felt disrespected? You clapped back. Your emotions got triggered? You responded on impulse. But now, you pause. You give yourself a second to breathe, to process, to ask, is this worth it? Do I even care? What happens if I don't respond at all? And most of the time, that tiny pause saves you from drama, miscommunication, and emotional burnout. You stop letting your momentary emotions make permanent decisions. You start responding instead of reacting. You start choosing the outcome instead of letting the outcome choose you. And here's the real growth. You don't feel the need to match someone's energy anymore. If someone comes at you angry, you don't automatically mirror it. If someone tries to drag you into chaos, you step back instead of stepping in. Your emotional reactions used to run your life. Now you run them. And number 7? That's where you realize you're not just managing your emotions. You're done trying to manage everyone else's. The 7th sign is that you finally dropped the role of everyone's emotional mechanic. You used to take responsibility for people's problems like they were your own. You tried to save friends from their bad decisions, tried to rescue partners from their self-sabotage, tried to motivate people who weren't ready to move, and tried to pour into people who had no intention of pouring back. But now, you've learned one of the hardest truths of maturity. You can't fix people who aren't ready to fix themselves. You stop carrying emotional weight that doesn't belong to you. You stop giving advice to people who only want attention, not change. You stop trying to heal people who use their wounds as excuses. And you stop trying to be the hero in everyone's story. You realize that support doesn't mean saving someone. Boundaries aren't abandonment. And stepping back isn't cruelty. It's clarity. You finally understand that everyone has their own timeline, their own patterns, their own lessons. And you're not responsible for dragging someone to a level they're not willing to climb to. And the moment you grasp that, life gets a whole lot less chaotic. Which leads directly into sign number 8. The one that shows your entire mindset has shifted from short-term comfort to long-term growth. The 8th sign is that you finally start choosing long-term benefits over short-term gratification. And that's a major maturity milestone. You stop doing things just because they feel good right now. You stop chasing the quick fix. You stop falling for the instant reward that leaves you empty 10 minutes later. Instead, you start thinking in terms of months and years, not minutes and hours. You realize that eating better today affects your energy tomorrow. That saving a little consistently matters more than spending impulsively. That building a skill, a business, or a healthier mindset pays off way more than temporary pleasure ever could. You're not as easily tempted anymore, because you finally get that the easy option usually comes with the hardest consequences later. And here's the real shift. You're no longer afraid of waiting. You're no longer bothered by slow progress. You're no longer frustrated by the grind. Patience stops feeling like suffering and starts feeling like strategy. This is the moment where you start respecting your future self more than your present impulses. And number 9, that's when you realize you don't owe anyone an explanation for any of these changes. The 9th sign is that you finally get it. You don't owe anyone an explanation for everything you do. You used to over-explain, justify, and defend every choice, from how you spend your time, to who you hang out with, to why you react a certain way. You felt like if someone didn't understand, it was your job to make them understand. But now, you realize that some things simply don't need to be explained. Your boundaries, your decisions, your priorities, they're yours, not yours to defend. You don't feel guilty about saying no without an essay. You don't justify walking away from toxic situations. You don't spend energy trying to get validation from people who will never give it. This isn't about being cold or distant. It's about self-respect. It's about knowing your peace matters more than other people's opinions. It's about understanding that your growth doesn't require permission or approval. And that brings us to the final sign, the one that proves you've completely leveled up in how you approach life itself. The 10th and final sign is that you've stopped trying to control every outcome. And honestly, this is the ultimate sign of maturity. You used to stress over every little detail, every plan, every what if. If things didn't go exactly your way, it felt like the world was against you. You tried to micromanage people, situations, and even your own feelings. Now, you've learned to trust timing. You trust yourself, and you trust life to work out the way it's supposed to. You understand that controlling everything is exhausting and often pointless. You let go of outcomes that aren't in your hands. You stop forcing situations or people to fit your agenda. You move with life instead of against it. And the result? You feel lighter, calmer, and more aligned than ever before. You don't just react to life, you flow with it. And that's a level of freedom most people never reach. This is where growth becomes visible, internal, and effortless. This is where you realize you're not just growing up, you're truly leveling up. Now, before we wrap this up, there's something really important you need to hear. Maturity isn't a checklist. It's not about hitting all 10 signs perfectly or comparing yourself to anyone else. It's not about measuring your growth against someone else's timeline. It's a process, a journey. And yes, it's okay if you're still figuring things out. Here's the thing. Growth isn't always dramatic. It doesn't always feel like a sudden aha moment or some big life transformation. Most of the time, it's quiet, subtle, almost invisible, until you look back and realize just how far you've come. You'll notice small things first, the way you respond to someone's attitude, the way you don't chase people anymore, the way you choose your peace over petty drama. And those small changes? They add up. They build momentum. They shape who you are in ways that are powerful, even if nobody else sees it. The key here is awareness. Pay attention to your reactions. Notice what drains you. Notice the things that used to stress you out, but barely touch you now. Notice the moments where you handle yourself better than you would have a year ago, a month ago, or even last week. And don't forget to celebrate yourself along the way. Maturity doesn't mean being perfect. It doesn't mean having it all figured out. It doesn't mean never making mistakes. It just means you're learning, adapting, and taking responsibility for yourself in a way that actually matters. The more you lean into this mindset, the easier life becomes. You stop forcing, stressing, or overthinking. You stop giving your energy to things that aren't worth it. You start flowing instead of fighting. You start trusting yourself, trusting your timing, and trusting that life is unfolding exactly as it should, even if you don't see the whole picture yet. And here's the real kicker. The quieter, subtler growth often leads to the biggest wins. The relationships you build feel easier, your decisions feel clearer, and your peace, the kind that lasts, becomes real, not just a fleeting feeling. So remember this: don't rush, don't compare, don't pressure yourself to be perfect. Focus on awareness. Focus on learning. Focus on choosing growth over ego, patience over impulse, and self-respect over approval. Do that consistently, and you'll realize that maturity isn't something you reach. It's something you become. And the best part? The more you embrace this mindset, the more effortless everything else becomes. Let's get real. Growth and maturity aren't a straight path. They don't come with a map or a guidebook, and they definitely don't happen overnight. You're going to face situations that test every new level you've reached. People will disappoint you. Friends may drift away. Loved ones might challenge your boundaries. You'll make mistakes. Sometimes big ones, sometimes small ones that still sting. Old habits will creep back in. And there will be moments where you feel like you've lost ground instead of gaining it. And here's the thing. That's normal. That's part of the process. Maturity doesn't mean perfection. It means learning to navigate life even when things don't go your way. It means staying aligned with yourself even when the world seems determined to push you off balance. The difference now is in how you respond. Where you used to panic, overreact, or spiral, you pause, you breathe, you reflect. You ask yourself, what can I take from this? What's the lesson here? Challenges stop being obstacles and start being mirrors. They show you where you've grown and where there's still room to grow. You start seeing discomfort as a teacher, conflict as an opportunity to practice patience, mistakes as feedback instead of failure. Every frustrating situation becomes a chance to apply the lessons of the last 10 signs: self-control, perspective, boundaries, patience, and trust in yourself. And here's the most important part. The bigger the challenge, the bigger the growth. Every time someone tests your limits, every time a plan falls apart, every time you face rejection or disappointment, that's when your new level of maturity is forged. You walk away stronger, calmer, and more capable than you were before. Challenges are not setbacks. They're signposts. They're proof that you're moving forward. Proof that you're practicing the growth you've worked so hard to achieve. The more uncomfortable or difficult the situation, the more meaningful the growth. So when life gets messy, when people push your buttons, or when things don't go your way, don't panic. Don't beat yourself up. Don't take it as a sign you're not mature enough. See it as proof that you're evolving, that you're leveling up in real time. And trust me, the more challenges you face, the more you'll start seeing just how capable, resilient, and grounded you've become. Because maturity isn't measured by comfort. It's measured by how you handle the moments that try to break you. And if you can navigate those moments without losing yourself, you've officially arrived. All right, so you've seen the signs, reflected on your growth, and even faced the reality of challenges. But here's the thing. Maturity isn't just about noticing it. It's about practicing it every single day. It's easy to watch a video, nod your head, and feel inspired. But real change happens when you put it into action. Here's how you can keep leveling up. 1. Check in with yourself daily. Take a few minutes at the start or end of each day to reflect. Ask yourself, how did I handle situations today? What triggered me? Where did I stay calm? Awareness is the foundation of growth. You can't improve what you don't notice. 2. Set clear boundaries. Maturity means protecting your time, energy, and peace. Stop saying yes to everything out of obligation. Stop tolerating behavior that drains you. Boundaries aren't punishment. They're self-respect. The more consistent you are with your boundaries, the easier it becomes to maintain your mental and emotional balance. 3. Learn to pause before reacting. This one is huge. Even a few seconds of breathing before responding can prevent a lot of regret later. When someone provokes you or a situation feels frustrating, pause. Ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Am I responding from logic, or am I reacting from emotion? That small pause can change everything. 4. Embrace discomfort. Growth rarely happens in comfort zones. The awkward conversations, the difficult decisions, the moments that feel inconvenient or challenging, that's where the magic happens. Lean in. Face it head on. Every uncomfortable moment is practice for the stronger, calmer version of yourself. 5. Surround yourself with people who inspire growth. Your environment matters more than you think. Energy is contagious. Choose friends, mentors, and colleagues who challenge you in healthy ways, who inspire you to be better, and who support your journey rather than drain it. 6. Keep learning and reflecting. Read books, listen to podcasts, and seek perspectives that stretch your thinking. Maturity grows when you actively question yourself and expand your understanding of the world and of yourself. 7. Practice gratitude and self-compassion. Take time to recognize your achievements and treat yourself with kindness. Stop comparing yourself to others. Stop punishing yourself for past mistakes. You'll notice that the more you appreciate your progress, the more motivated you are to keep going. Consistency is the key here. These aren't one-time actions. They're habits, and habits are what make maturity stick. The more you practice these steps, even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient, the more natural your growth becomes. Eventually, your mindset shifts, your reactions change, and your confidence and peace become effortless.